And now in Showbiz India, I'd like to introduce a very special guest who I've known since she was a little girl, Smriti Mundhra. Smriti has been working in films and television for over 10 years. She is an Oscar-nominated filmmaker who also holds an MFA from Columbia University and has been awarded many awards, especially the Best Documentary Director at Tribeca Film Festival. The list goes on, but recently, Smriti has been making some headlines for directing the groundbreaking show Indian Matchmaking on Netflix. We're so excited to welcome Smriti Mundhra to Showbiz India.
I'm so happy to be here.
This is especially a very special interview for me. As you know, your mother was the producer, Mrs. Chandra Mundhra, of the pageant that I won many years ago and jump-started my career. And your late father, Dr. Jagmohan Mundhra, I was very, very fond of. What a nice man. He helped so many, including me. And I think I've known you since you were like 8 years old.
Yeah, it's been a while. And I think you did one of the last interviews with my dad that he did before he passed away in our house, in our home, and I watched that all the time, over and over again. So,
That's so sweet. And I feel so proud myself that you've grown into such a beautiful, young, and accomplished lady. So congratulations. Along with your mom, I'm there too, rooting for you.
Thank you.
So let's talk about Indian Matchmaking. Of course, it's become big news. Everyone's talking about it, my God. And you'd also done a film prior to this, right? It was called Suitable Girl.
Yes, exactly.
And so that was also on the similar lines of Indian Matchmaking. What inspires you to talk about these subjects?
I think marriage is a very dominant topic, for a lot of people, but especially a lot of Indians and South Asian people. It's something that really defines, for many of us, sort of a coming of age, and whether, we're running away from it and rejecting it, or we're, embracing it and it's, something we're opting into or trying to opt into. I think it's just something that a lot of young people, especially a lot of young Indian people, really have a unique relationship with, the idea of marriage. And, certainly that was the case for me before I got married. It was, very confusing, and there were a lot of ups and downs when I went through my own matrimonial journey in terms of trying to find a life partner. And
you did that yourself,
though? Oh yes, absolutely, all of it. Shadi.com, Times of India matrimonial ad, everything, all under the sort of watchful eye of my mother. Actually, she was really in charge of that whole, for a couple of years, that whole part of my life. And that included, at the time, this was, years ago when I was in my late 20s, that included working with several matchmakers. And Seema Taparia, who was the main matchmaker in Indian Matchmaking, was one of them. So that whole journey led me to Seema Taparia, who is a very well-known matchmaker in our community. And she didn't end up finding me a husband. I managed that on my own, but I did, she did sort of give me this insight into this whole world of matchmaking, and her business, which I thought was like a great way to sort of see. It was almost like a litmus test to see where we are, as a culture, in terms of, how much we've progressed when it comes to, ideas about marriage and gender roles and all of those kinds of, like, traditional conservative things. And where we haven't progressed. So when the opportunity came up to make this show, I felt like it would be, a good idea to sort of broaden the scope, in terms of seeing many different types of clients and sort of how she interacts with her clients, and how they interact with her. And, to see, like, how things are changing, because she's a fairly traditional, old-fashioned matchmaker, and her clients, are millennials and have different needs than what their parents, had, and, have different expectations than what their parents have and had. And that is one thing, a big thing that I noticed, when I was, met Seema Didi for the first time, back in, the 2007, 2008, it was very rare for her to actually spend a lot of time, or interact directly with the, boy or girl, as we say, but the young person, who is looking for a life partner. It was really mostly, interacting with the parents, the new generation has really sort of demanded more agency, in the process. She's interacting more, with the young people, and that alone is sometimes hilarious.
What made you decide to choose, some couples based in the US, some in India? That crossover was very interesting. I'm wondering what prompted that.
It's honestly, it's the nature of her business. She has clients all over the world, not just in the US and India. She is in Canada and Hong Kong and, in Kenya and the UK, Australia, everywhere. She has clients all over the world, but we focused on US and India to sort of get a bit of compare and contrast, in terms of, how millennials are evolving, and changing their ideas around marriage, or not changing their ideas around marriage in India, and then the same thing, in the US.
So Seema Auntie, as everyone calls them, talks about the rising divorce rates in India and how her job is becoming more difficult now as time is passing. Do you personally think that arranged marriages are making a comeback?
I think that the term arranged marriage is extremely loose these days. I think it's really just a term that reflects the idea of matchmaking, or the search for a life partner that involves, parents or family. Sometimes that's all it is. Sometimes the full control, and most of the time, especially, these days, the full control in terms of, who to marry and when to marry is in the hands of the young person. But that's not to say there's not a lot of family pressure. As we've seen in the show, there's a lot of family pressure often, and a lot of sort of internalized pressure, which is something that I really relate to because, Reshma, as you know, my parents, were fairly liberal and progressive and, and I knew that if I didn't get married, until I was 30 or 35 or 40 or never got married, that they would, support me in whatever decision I made. But I think, there's a spectrum in terms of how much support young people have, and families have, in India and the diaspora in terms of their decision to get married or not get married, now, or who to marry, frankly. In terms of the divorce rate rising, this is going to sound weird, but I actually think that that's a good thing. I think, we've always sort of boasted in India that our low divorce rate as something to be proud of, which in some cases, I'm sure it is, but it's also reflective of the lack of agency many women had, in Indian culture to sort of forge their own path, to follow their own dreams and to leave situations that maybe were not right for them. I think the fact that divorce rates are rising is indicative of the fact that women's independence is rising, financial independence, education, et cetera. So I actually, I think it's a good thing, because I think anytime somebody, a person, has the ability, the space, the support to do what's right for them, whether it's to get married or not get married or leave a marriage or, find an alternate type of partnership, that's not a non sort of traditional heteronormative partnership. I think that's a great thing. That's progress.
As you know, Indian matchmaking is a trending topic right now, and you've received many rave reviews being such a popular show, but you've also received some backlash for exposing the realities of colorism, the caste system, and other issues that are prevalent in South Asian culture. How do you react to that?
I think all the conversation is good. I think it's great that people are loving the show. I think it's great that people are watching the show. And I think that the conversations that the show is sparking are long overdue. I recognize that it's uncomfortable, and I recognize that, there are people who want to see more even in the show, which I totally understand. It's by no way representative of the entire, South Asian or Indian diasporic experience. There's a lot that's left on the table that hopefully we'll have an opportunity in future seasons, if we get future seasons, to explore. But, I think these what we didn't want to sanitize the process of what, marriage is to our culture and our communities, and what, are some of the more traditional conservative and sometimes regressive ideals that we're still holding on to. The sort of valuing of fairness is still very much prevalent, in our communities, not just, for our parents. It's not something that we left behind a generation ago. Even young people today, they've internalized a lot of that, and still, hold on to those ideals. So I think there's no way to sort of, evolve past these things unless we talk about them openly. And I'm glad that the show at least has played a part in that.
So I think one of the frequent questions that I hear is, what happened to those matches? Are you still in touch with them? Can you
Absolutely.
update?
Absolutely. I'm in touch with every single person, almost every single person who's on the show, between myself and my amazing team of producers. We stay in touch with everyone. And actually what's even more beautiful and amazing is all of the participants, on the series, all of the different people who participated in the series have sort of formed this, group, this friendship, amongst each other, even though many of them have never, actually most of them have never met, because we filmed everyone separately. So it's really nice to see how they've sort of formed their own friendship, and and also supporting each other through this like very turbulent ride, because all of them are regular people, who are out there living their lives, doing their jobs, and literally overnight they became viral celebrities. So they've been able to support each other through that process, and we've been there, as a producing team to sort of help them navigate this very weird sort of space. But in terms of where they are now, I'm not going to say much, because there's actually, going to be soon available a sort of special, like, where are they now, sort of thing. So, you could check Netflix for that. It might be out by the time this airs. So I'll let, the participants speak for themselves in terms of where they are now and how they're doing now. But yeah, everyone is doing really well.
Now I'd like to switch over to, again, a very relevant subject that you were actually nominated for an Oscar for. I think you know what movie I'm talking about, St. Louis Superman. And it's about a rapper, and it's his true journey, how he becomes a legislator. What a fantastic subject. Black Lives Matter, of course, has always been extremely important, but it's really in the forefront right now. When you look back, what do you feel?
The past year, especially the 12 months before coronavirus lockdown, was the most intense and most amazing year of my life. I at the beginning of that 12-month period last April, I gave birth to my son, and then it was just like a nonstop, traveling. St. Louis Superman took off in a way I never expected. My goal was always just to keep working and to keep making films and find subjects that, I'm interested in exploring, and people, who can sort of teach me new things, and, who I can sort of discover more about the world through. And I never expected that film would take me all the way to the Oscars. Never expected that. The journey was incredible, and it was all the more amazing because my directing partner, Sammy Khan, our producer, Posi Tang, our co-producer, Cheyenne Tan, and Bruce Franks Jr., who's the subject of the documentary, we were sort of all together on the journey as a unit, and we sort of kept each other grounded, because it's a lot, when you're at screenings and you're going to awards functions and you're, all of this sort of energy is being put around trying to, get you an Academy Award, it can go to your head, very easily. So it was, I'm glad that we were sort of on that path together and we could keep each other grounded. And, that was really the best thing about it. But I mean, I'm not going to lie, it was an absolutely incredible experience, to go to the Oscars and, represent, not just, our film, but also each of us sort of represented our families, our backgrounds, the countries from which we came. We all come from different places and, represent different, communities. And we wanted to sort of wear that proudly and bring that to the Academy Awards at a time where, that institution desperately needs more diversity, So
I saw the picture of you guys, each one in your traditional attire and making that statement. And that was so beautiful to see.
Thank you. Yeah, it was. And for me, the best part was I wore my dad's watch, the watch that he wore, every day, like his, so I wore his watch. So I got to bring a piece of him with me also.
So of course you have lots of things happening. Netflix might have another season of Indian Matchmaking.
Oh.
What else is in future for you?
I'm currently editing another documentary series that's loosely about the history of Bollywood, told through, a specific, set of filmmakers. And that'll be really fun. It's going to be released later this year. It'll be really fun because it has, you know, interviews with like every major Bollywood celebrity you can possibly imagine. You know, and it's kind of an interesting sort of look back, you know, at the last 50 years, you know, of Indian history and Indian cinema history. So that'll be released later this year. And then, you know, besides that, just working, trying to find inspiration while I'm stuck in my house, you know.
And your baby is so small.
Yeah. Yeah. I have two kids now, a
Yeah.
five and a half year old daughter and a 1 year old son.
Wow. Well, congratulations. May your star continue to rise, and talk to you soon.
Thank you.